Good afternoon. You're most welcome to the Democrat National Convention in Chicago. I'm Keith Carney with FedNetTV, and I'm joined today by Her Excellency Geraldine Byrne Nason, Ireland's ambassador to the United States, and Congressman Dan Kildee from the great state of Michigan and a longtime member of the Congressional Friends of Ireland caucus. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Michigan is the home of the NCAA football champion Wolverines.
You would be wrong to not mention it.
And we're here today discussing U.S.-Irish relations. Ireland has always had a special relationship with the United States due to the number of Americans with Irish roots. Under Joe Biden, a president of Irish descent, there was additional focus on the relationship with Ireland. We're going to be talking a little bit about trade today. So both countries have had years of resilient economies. According to the U.S. State Department, Ireland has also become an important research and development center for U.S. firms in Europe. Irish firms have significant investors in the United States and across the range of sectors. Ireland is the ninth largest source of foreign direct investment in the United States. As a matter of fact, in 2020, there was over $250 billion invested. Ambassador, can you tell us what that means to Ireland and the Irish economy?
Thanks very much, Keith. Great to be with you and to be with one of the real friends of Ireland,
right.
Dan Kildee. So, yes, I mean, the economic relationship between Ireland and the United States is a fundamental part of the great big relationship we have. People think of us in historical terms as being partners, but it's a very 21st century and in the best sense of the word also transactional relationship. We have a healthy economic relationship between Ireland and the United States. For us, it means that in terms of Irish investment here into the United States, we have a large number, over 600 Irish companies who are here creating jobs in the United States every single day in every state in the United States. And the Irish ambassador, as I go across the 8 consulates, I see that Ireland on a day-to-day basis is invested in ensuring that FDI relationship, where, as you said, we're the 9th source of FDI, that it's kept up to date with the growing economic nature of our relationship, but also the demands here in the United States. We have a huge investment in high-tech, in pharma, in agricultural products here in the United States. Over 100,000 jobs created by Irish investors. I think that it's a novel way of looking at how history catches up and leaps over fences, that the type of Irish relationship we have now, the visitors coming here often in business class seats and not coffin ships, Irish people coming in to create jobs, those 100,000 jobs, bouncing off that very healthy, and I think maybe Dan will speak to that, the US investment into Ireland, and certainly buddying up with US companies. I think that's a characteristic that I like to emphasize because it shows that Ireland is in a way a good partner, and that we bring with us also the background as a European member state and our single market backdrop to everything we do on the international global stage offers itself here to the US economy as well. You see that reflected very much on the island in the opposite direction. I'll leave the Congressman to speak to that. But there's no doubt that, in the last decade, you quoted that extraordinary figure, almost €250 million in 2020, flowing in terms of our trade and investment relationship, going from strength to strength.
Yeah, and Dan, in 2017, the U.S. Embassy opened a Select USA office to encourage and assist Irish companies investing in the United States. This is clearly helping both economies.
There's no question about it. One of the advantages that we have, of course, with the relationship is that, first of all, Ireland punches well above its weight in terms of the economic impact. Their investment in the U.S., of course, our investment there, the relationship is a strong one. A smaller country, but a big country when it comes to the relationship. That relationship spans beyond the economy. I think one really important aspect, the ambassador touched on this, the connection between the U.S. and Ireland is historic, personal for many of us. but it's an incredible platform for us. And when you think about the relationship between Ireland itself, of course, as a member of that single market. And let's face it, in the wake of Brexit, it's much more significant. Ireland is a great place to do business. We have similar economies in many ways. Living standards are similar. It's an easy relationship for us to pursue, but also creates an important platform for us as we, at some point, will enter into negotiations over a U.S.-EU agreement. There's no better sort of avenue to that agreement than to look at the relationship, the economic relationship between the U.S. and Ireland, and use that as a basis. A high standards agreement would be easy to achieve if we think about Ireland when we, contemplate the pursuit of a U.S.-EU trade agreement.
Now, I'd like to shift to immigration for a moment. Vice President Harris will talk tonight about immigration. Ambassador, what would you like to hear in her remarks with respect to Ireland?
Well, look, I'm really looking forward to the remarks tonight, and I will welcome everything your vice presidential candidate has to say. The issue of immigration has been a thread that goes right through our US-Ireland relationship for a long time. I like to think that immigration policies in the past facilitated brilliant, bright young people from Ireland coming here, often not by choice, but coming here and help to build a better and greater America. And sadly, recently, that pipeline, that opportunity in Ireland, we have the most highly educated young workforce in Europe. Many of them would still like to take that trail here into those 21st century jobs. But the opportunities aren't there. So this evening, I would hope we would hear a reflection of what we heard in speeches earlier in the week, that the immigration issue is something that needs to be fixed here in the United States. It needs, and I would like to think that there's a reflection of the value of people who come, like Irish people, for the last almost 2 centuries soon, to contribute to the economy of the United States and to community and society here. We also have, in addition to those bright young people who would take up any available legal pathways, there are some who have not been given the opportunity for rectifying their legal status here. And they are people that we work with, we think about at state level. There are certain facilitations, including driving licenses offered. These are ways of fixing what is a fundamentally fractured system, where I think everyone on both sides of the aisle, we recognize it's fractured. I am on Capitol Hill very often seeing the Congressman and his colleagues. I never cease to raise the issue with all the sensitivity that an ambassador should have. This is a quintessentially US domestic policy issue. We recognize you need to find your accommodation. We had high hopes at different points along the way, but when it comes to Ireland, we're ready and waiting for the opportunities to be restored, and also to look in a sensitive and I think a self-interest way at those who are here already, living in your society, working in your economy, who can bring value to your society and economy, and to make sure that we find a way to rectify their situations.
Yeah. And Congressman, what are you looking to hear on immigration?
Well, what I expect to hear, because I know Vice President Harris and I know her views on this, she embraces that we need to embrace immigration. It's important to the renewal of the U.S. economy. Look, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be in the United States were it not for immigration. My great-grandfather left Donegal a long time ago to come here and to make roots here. And we, the Irish diaspora, have contributed greatly to the success of this country. No question about it. We can't forget that history. The constant source of renewal, of new ideas, of good, hard workers coming to our country is really an important part of the American experience. So we need to embrace it and not continue to confuse the difficulties that we have in managing our issues on the southern border with the much bigger question of immigration, whether it's Irish immigrants or places all across the globe. We're better when we embrace immigration. We need comprehensive immigration reform. All you need to do is look at this auditorium later tonight and you will see the product of immigration to this country. We're virtually almost all, with the exception of our First Peoples, we're immigrants from somewhere else, and it's made us a better country.
Yeah, and with the economies the way they are with the two countries, things are stalled here with any comprehensive immigration reform. We're politically divided in the U.S., and I think there's little chance of the comprehensive immigration reform. I had a discussion with a prominent immigration attorney who's worked on Irish immigration, and recently she suggested that because of the trans-U.S. Irish companies, perhaps the category of a limited stay employment, with what we talked about, the amount of jobs that are going back and forth between Ireland and the United States with hiring, that perhaps not a carve out, but a special visa would be available for a temporary period of time. Do you think that's something that may work?
I think it's possible. First of all, I don't want to give up the notion of a comprehensive reform, because elections have consequences, and one consequence of this election could be the will arrives in Washington, D.C. to do what the whole country knows what we need to do, and that's comprehensive immigration reform. But either in that or separately, there is a need for us to deal with temporary visas. It's in almost every sector of our economy, whether it's agriculture, manufacturing, tourism. Sure. We have a dramatic need for that. But I would hate to give up the possibility, because each 2 years we renew, we have a chance. And this is a little political. We elect the right people to the right positions. The will clearly exists to engage in a comprehensive approach to immigration that also deals with the issues on the southern border. We can do that, and I don't want to give up that possibility.
Yeah. And Ambassador, what do you think?
Well, not for the first time, I can say I fully agree with the Congressman. That is, in a way, what Irish people have hoped for some time, to see that, what we call that pathway into the United States, opened up, and to give certainty. I think of all the young Irish investors who are looking here, and money doesn't follow an uncertain prospect, and knowing that they can come in with a core group of Irish employees to establish a company here. I hear it every day in the week right across this United States, that investment decisions are stopping at the border, leaving Ireland, because they can't be assured of having that pathway. Of course, any flexibility would be welcome, but the best being the enemy of the good, etc. We still keep our eye on the big prize, because I think it's a mutually beneficial interest. The United States and its economy and its own future depends on freshening its labour force and freshening its talent and innovation. I make it's not political, but it's a party political for Ireland here, to say we continue to produce brilliant, creative innovators. We want to see them come here. They don't have to stay forever, but having an opportunity to come and work and grow jobs for the United States, and as many of them do, return eventually. But that certainty is very important for them as they invest.
I'd like to wrap up and talk about legacy issues in Northern Ireland. The Good Friday Agreement, entered into over 25 years ago, had ensured victims of violence from the Troubles that they would receive justice, and the perpetrators of their crimes would be held accountable. Last September, the British Parliament passed the Legacy Act. That prevented any investigations, all of them, to be terminated at that point, and no new investigations as of May of this year. So the Legacy Act was opposed by parties on both sides, and it's been shut down. Dan, you and 22 of your colleagues signed a letter to the newly elected Prime Minister of Britain, Keir Starmer, addressing the Good Friday Agreement. Have you heard back regarding that letter? What's the status?
I haven't seen the response, but I'm optimistic. I mean, the position that Labour has articulated to repeal the Legacy Act is a position that we support. But of course, that's not enough. We need to make sure that there's a true commitment to ensuring justice for the victims of the terrible period known as the Troubles. I met with then leader Starmer a few years ago, long before he was prime minister, and raised this issue. So this isn't the first discussion that we've had on the question, and had a fairly serious and detailed conversation about the conditions. Number one, of course, it was resolving the issues directly related to Brexit, which could have had a disastrous economic impact, but also completely undermined a singularly successful agreement that put aside these long-standing troubles. The Good Friday Accords, it's an amazing achievement. It really is. But this other question could undermine some of that achievement, and we do want to make sure that there are justice for those families, and we want to see that commitment. We wrote to the Prime Minister and look forward to a response that is consistent with the conversations that we had with him over the years.
And Ambassador, there was a lawsuit that was, I guess, filed on behalf of the Irish government in the European Court.
Yes.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a matter of deep concern to the Irish government, and has been from the moment the act was mooted in the British Parliament. We objected publicly as Irish government to this move, which is all about victims and their ability to get accountability and to find some kind of closure in terms of lost loved ones. And I can't say how deeply grateful we were to Dan and his colleagues on Capitol Hill. The letter you just referred to is probably the third or fourth letter you've written over the course of our discussion about this with London. We were deeply frustrated, frankly, by the way the last British administration handled the issue, and finally the Irish government at the end of last year felt, despite the great efforts here supported in the United States, very, very close cooperation with the administration and understanding here of our case, the government in Dublin felt there was no alternative. So we took an interstate case to the European Court of Human Rights. First time we had done that in almost 50 years, and not done lightly. The Labour Party, while it was preparing for election and now in office, promised to repeal the Legacy Act. And I must say that the first indications are positive. I was delighted to see that the very first meeting that Keir Starmer had with any international leader, with anyone outside of his own government, was with the Irish Taoiseach, who met with him in July, and the next meeting is upcoming in September, in the beginning of September. We want, of course, to see that commitment that was made before election translated into action, and everything we're hearing and seeing, I would say there's a sort of a reset going on between Dublin and London, which is fundamental, and the Legacy Act is part of that. The issue is now in the courts and will remain there, were there to be a complete repeal of the Act and all of the aspects of the Act that victims groups have deep concerns about, shared by the Irish government. That might change the trajectory of that case. We have to wait and see. This has been a road that has been a difficult, troubled one to travel for the Irish government. But I will say that, to go to your own point, Keith, at the beginning, the role the British and the Irish governments play as co-guarantors of the Good Friday Agreement, for which we always thank the United States for its role, but that co-guarantor role is fundamental. It underwrites everything that happens on the island of Ireland. And now, in that context of a reset, I think we will see things moving in a more positive direction. And let's hope that the Legacy Act is part of that.
Amen to that.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank Ambassador Nason and Congressman Kildee from the United Center and the Democrat National Convention in Chicago. I'm Keith Carney with FedNetTV. Thank you.